Welcome, Internet, to our very first official episode of Nerd Newz. For those of you who have watched us on the game, we used to always have a little quick Nerd News segment in the game. We realized that section took enough time that it kind of deserved its own show. We're your hosts, Russell and Amber. If you like us a lot and you have not seen the game, then make sure you go check out our other show, The Game, where we talk about tabletop, everything from Session Zeros to Campaign Heroes. That is not going to be this show. This show, we're going to be talking about any news related to tabletop, to Wizards of the Coast, to D&D, all the things, and hopefully we bring it to you in a timely manner.
Indeed. We will be talking about tabletop role-playing games primarily, along with a bit of pop culture and science fiction, and maybe some gaming, video games might come into it. But mostly we'll be talking about tabletop gaming. And as you can imagine, seeing as the world of tabletop gaming is somewhat dominated by one product, the Dungeons and the Dragons, that probably will weigh heavily as an aspect or a major topic throughout. There's some great games over there, though. That's Vampire the Masquerade. Oh my God, that's an awesome game. Somebody should play that.
So, folks, let's go ahead and start with our first topic of the evening. This year is D&D's 50th anniversary birthday. How do you call it a birthday? Do you call it it's interesting that they call it an anniversary. That's what I've been seeing. They call it an anniversary.
Does it also coincide with one of Gary Gygax's anniversaries? Was this his
I don't know.
How long has he been gone now? I should know this because we interviewed Luke not that long ago.
I should know this too. Should we edit this part out? Let's do a quick Google search. I don't know. But we interviewed Luke Gygax late in the year last year, and we were talking about all the upcoming things that would be happening this year due to the 50th anniversary. And because of that, that's where I think a lot of our our nerd news. Let's just combine the word. This show is now nerds. There's some big things because of the 50th anniversary. The first thing that I had heard about for book collectors is that there will be a one-of-a-kind manuscript of the original D&D that you can buy. All right. It is going to be available this year. Oh my gosh.
Wait a minute. What are you saying? The original D&D, what does that mean? Are we talking about chainmail? Are we talking about war game miniature rules? Are we talking about first edition Dungeons and Dragons, the basic set, the red box? What is first edition? Exactly. What is the original D&D? Where does that start?
Yeah, you're right. Calling it original D&D is probably not the best way to go about it, because
certainly old school though.
Right. And I'm going to pop up some pictures on the video here. My understanding is there's going to be a book written that's kind of got some of the details of when Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson started kind of, putting this all together, some of the letters that they sent back and forth to each other. It does also talk about the publication of Chainmail. There's some info on Blackmore in there.
It offers an historical account of D&D's early days, featuring original artwork, playtest materials, manuscript annotations, and unseen correspondence between co-creators Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, which is what you were saying earlier. An in-depth look at the game's formative years, ideal for enthusiasts interested in the evolution of D&D.
Will be about $100. But who knows? That's what they're saying. And then they're going to get all bought out, and then you're going to have to buy them like secondhand from someone else, and they'll be $500. Who knows?
And they'll do a boxed set that has an extra thing in it that you have to then buy to replace the original thing. And yeah.
I feel like the folks who play D&D, collecting aspects of it, I think kind of comes hand in hand with like just the nerdiness of it. I don't know. So This is something I can see a lot of folks I know who would be interested in just buying it just to have it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love it.
Right.
Just to have on my shelf.
Just to say that you have it, right?
Have it, right. It'd make a good gift too. I mean, it's especially the thing that's cool about it actually is you can give it to anyone, because you could give it to a DM and they'd love it. You can give it to a player and they will also equally enjoy having that. It's a great gift. You
Yeah.
could, anyone that you know that plays D&D, there
That's
you
a
go.
good point. And then just watch
Birthdays, Christmas.
all those people who don't have the original stuff from
Mm,
back in the day. They're kicking themselves now. And if you buy the 50-year edition, just wait until it's 100 and everybody's going to wish that they had the 50-year one.
right. Now, I had about 8 original hardcover first edition D&D books when I was in my teens, and I lived in Papua New Guinea. And I moved back to New Zealand. My parents were teaching over there. And when I moved back to New Zealand, my parents split up and I went with my mother back to New Zealand, and I had to leave all my books behind, and my dad was supposed to send them to me and he never did.
Oh, no.
Never.
Oh, gosh.
I lost all my original role-playing books, all of them.
That would just hurt my heart so much.
Yeah. And then I collected hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but a whole huge stack of vampire books as well, back in the 90s. And there was about like a 1.5 foot high pile of vampire books, and then they got stolen.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I
You
haven't
have
had
the worst luck with these books.
I do. It's, look, you can't get too attached to things.
Yeah.
They're all replaceable. You can still have fun. Anyway, please.
On that note, still talking about collector items and things coming out because of the 50th anniversary. Okay. Do you collect stamps?
Me?
Have you ever?
I once collected coins for a while.
Okay.
I was 12, I think.
Okay.
What do I collect? I collect swords. Well, I did collect swords, but swords are hard to collect because they're expensive.
Right.
What do I collect? I don't even collect dice. I mean, like people, I have dice. I have lots of dice.
Do you even D&D? No, I'm just kidding.
Do I even D&D? I don't know. What do I collect? I collect players. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did kind of do a small stint with collecting stamps when I was younger. It didn't go very far because all I had access to was whatever this was before the forever stamp. So it was interesting because, you had the different denominations and stuff. Now that there's the forever stamp, like I kind of lost interest. But
so what is the forever stamp?
Oh, okay. This is good. This is interesting because I actually saw someone ask about this as well. So in the United States, we at one point our stamps were like, let's say the stamp was 10 cents each, right? So you'd put a 10-cent stamp on your letter and that would be enough to mail it. However, you would have a roll of stamps and then they would up the price. And now you got to put 1.5 stamps on your letter or you have to buy the new stamps. So the forever stamps, basically whatever cost it was at that you bought it, they're good forever, even though the cost of the stamp goes up. So now you don't have to worry about like wasting any stamps that you've bought.
Right. That's a good idea.
It's funny. I hadn't thought about the fact that it's not common knowledge what the forever stamp is, but I actually, as I was doing research for this news story, I remember somebody asking, gosh, that's so pretentious that they would put it on a stamp, forever stamp. What does that mean? And then someone had to explain to them, it's about the cost. It's not that we're just saying like, these stamps are wonderful forever.
Right. It's not right. They're not blowing their own horns in that respect.
For those of you who collect stamps or are interested in collecting this particular set, D&D is releasing a whole bunch of stamps this year with beautiful artwork. Some of the artwork, I'm going to put this up on the screen here, but some of this artwork comes from the Practically Complete Guide to Dragons, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, Wizards and Spells, A Young Adventurer's Guide, the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Basic Set, Beasts and Behemoths. I haven't heard the title of that one. I don't know what that is.
That one either.
The Monster Manual and the starter set. Oh, the starter set is different than the basic set. So anyway, I am going to share my screen real quick because this artwork is fantastic. Can you see this? Yeah, that's right. The forever's crossed out because I get to sample, I guess. But check that out. That's Drizzt, right?
That's Drizzt. So that's going to be on a stamp.
This is going to be on the stamp. That's one.
Yeah. You're going to have to send me something just so you can send me a stamp.
Heck yeah, I will.
That'd be awesome.
Look at this.
I need these stamps. Oh,
they're
yeah.
So gorgeous.
What a year to release a picture of a purple worm.
Right?
With June just going bar at the moment. Cool.
Look at how gorgeous. Oh my God. And who uses snail mail nowadays? But like you would want to find an excuse to write a letter just so that you could use.
Right.
Like I wouldn't want to send my bill company, like bills that I'm paying. I wouldn't want to send them these stamps. I want to send these stamps to friends.
Right. Exactly. You're not just going to, yeah, exactly.
Here we go. Look at that. Oh man.
Look at that.
I'm going to go back to this one.
That's a great, because that was the cover of my first red box set, that what you're looking at right now, that barbarian fighter fighting the red dragon. He's about to get his ass kicked, I would suggest. But unless that sword the sword looks magical, to be fair.
This is true. Yeah, to be fair.
But that shield looks beaten up, and is he going to survive a breath attack.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
So I don't know, I'm gonna add this now and I will repeat it later. But since this is our first official Nerd News episode, at the end, I was thinking we could do some predictions on things for the year. And this is just something that came up with these stamps, is that there will be an uptick in mail sent because, like I said, either you're gonna buy a pack to keep as a collector's item, right? Just in case, I don't know, whatever, they become valuable later. But I would want to use these stamps. So there's going to be an uptick in mail sent with D&D stamps.
Cool.
All because us nerd communities, like, we just love this stuff. So that is one prediction. I will repeat at the end of the show.
That's your first prediction. Okay.
The first prediction.
Right.
And then at the end of the year, we're going to like revisit this, folks, and see if any of our predictions came true.
All right, Nostradamus, bring it on.
So the other thing that's already released for this year is the Deck of Many Things. Have you seen or heard about this?
I have heard vaguely about it. The Deck of Many Things has always been a very controversial magic item,
right?
So to speak. I mean, it's 70 something magic. Well, I don't know how many there are in the Deck of Many Things, but a tarot deck has 78 cards.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to take in, and I've heard nothing but horror stories about people using it. And yeah, I mean, personally, I prefer to make magic items for my setting than use super powerful shit that's going to break my game.
Right.
you know, especially if it wasn't my idea.
That's the thing, is I have actually never used a Deck of Many Things in my game. I might for this because I'm ending this one campaign that I'm running right now. It's getting to the end. So then it's like, it's the end of the campaign. So
nothing to lose, do you? And that's it. You might as well go out with a bang one way or the other. It's either going to be really funny, really cool, or really, really bad.
Really, really bad. But so here's the thing, that this is my understanding of the Deck of Many Things that they have released. This just released, I think, here at the end of January. So my understanding is the original deck had 22 cards.
Okay.
And then they bumped it up to like 44 or something to that effect. But with this deck, they basically added extra cards, and you can like mix and match, basically. So you can create your own deck.
Right.
So it's not that way. You have a little more control over the chaos that ensues in your game, which I think is a great idea. That makes it much more palatable for someone like me who's like, "Ooh, you're gonna break my game."
Yeah, you can throw in some somewhat bad stuff and some somewhat good stuff, and maybe hold back the really powerful game-breaking stuff.
Yeah.
To when you might need it at some point.
Right. Right.
Interesting. 22. That's the number of trump cards in the tarot deck.
Is it?
Yep. It's also the number of paths on the Hebrew tree of life, and the number of letters in the Hebrew alphabet, which relate to the tree of life, and the trump cards of the tarot deck.
Very interesting. It's almost like they planned.
It's almost like they had somebody who knew what they were talking about before they paid them too much.
So the next thing, which I am excited about, Dice Goblins, because collecting. Let me reel this back. I am excited ish is that Hasbro has basically licensed Fanroll licenses Dungeons and Dragons from Hasbro for dice products. So basically they're going to be creating some dice set. But what's going to be interesting about these dice sets is they're going to have like a Hasbro connection. So you could get like Monopoly dice, Risk dice, Clue dice. It's kind of weird because it doesn't necessarily tie in with Dungeons and Dragons.
They're trying to sell their own products.
Right. They're kind of trying to find some fusion here, which is why I reeled it back. I'm excited ish because I just like to collect dice, and if anything is even remotely like a unique release or something like that.
They own Transformers. You could get Transformer dice. They might be cool.
That would be cool. Oh man, could you imagine if your dice could like yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I don't know. I just think they're a little cool, I think, to have like, Connect 4 dice or Battleship dice, or I don't know.
I mean, I'm surprised they're not releasing action figures of Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez.
They probably have already.
I wouldn't be surprised. And costumes for Halloween.
Yeah.
Dress up as Lord whatever his name was, that guy, the bad guy.
All I can hear is Lord Farquaad, but that's from Shrek.
I want to say Hugh Laurie, but it's totally not Hugh Laurie. It's Hugh Grant.
Oh yes,
Hugh Grant.
Yes. Yeah. So, folks, we're at a point here where I'm just going to remind you this first time. If you like what you're seeing, we will get better at this. This is the first episode. We'll, tighten it up. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to check out our other shows as we delve in depth with more of the tabletop subjects in the other show.
And don't forget that Amber has a YouTube channel called Perty Nerdy.
That's right.
YouTube, which has all sorts of stuff about how to flavor your D&D and how to build stuff for your all sorts of stuff. I don't know how you put up so much content so fast.
I don't have a life.
You don't have a life, do you? That's clear. No. I've been YouTubing for something like 2-3 years now, and I can't put out that much content. And that's hard work.
Thank you.
It's great.
Well, folks, yeah. Russell also has a website, rollstream.com, and he is a professional DM. He runs various games, not just D&D. He also runs Vampire and all kinds of stuff. You can see his shows on Twitch and on YouTube. And so make sure pretty much he's everywhere as Rollstream. So you can find both of us, creative content folks, on the interwebs. And the doobly-doo and so on.
Yes. So more nerd news.
So here's the big one, right? We've been talking about all this fun stuff that's going to come out this year because of 50th anniversary. What we haven't touched on, the big thing, and I mean, it's kind of a little late in the game, and yet it's the big news. Wizards of the Coast layoffs, which I feel like if anybody who actually follows like D&D news,
you will have heard about that.
You will have heard about this. This isn't brand new news. I believe the news story kind of broke like late in December, and they had already done like a round of layoffs, I believe, last year.
And this is on the heels of so much continual nonsense,
all the nonsense from last year, the OGL.
Yeah, I mean, madness. What's going on at Hasbro? And well, we know what's going on there, don't we? We've got a bunch of very rich people who want to get richer while we pay them to do so.
Right.
But we have books, damn it. We don't need them.
So you're right. It's Hasbro that is laying off Wizards of the Coast staff. That's something that probably should be clarified. They're eliminating an additional 1,100 workers, at least. That's a lot of people, and maybe not on the grand scale of Hasbro. That might not be a lot.
Are those 1,100 people all Wizards of the Coast people that they're laying off?
That's my understanding.
I'm actually surprised that there are that many people that work for Wizards of the Coast. I mean, there must be many people that work for them. They put out books at a rate of knots. But, what does that mean? They've got artists, authors, layout people, editors. I mean, how many people do you need to put out a book every 6 months?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
It seems a lot. Mind you, that does not include things like virtual tabletops and all the stuff that they're developing and all the tech stuff. Because, of course, we know that Hasbro's CEO. Is it the CEO? Let me get my facts straight. But what I understand is that one of the CEOs there, his name is Cox. Is it Chris Cox? Is it the guy I'm thinking of?
Yes, Chris Cox.
Right. Now, he at some point hired someone from Zynga, who came from Zynga originally, whose name I forget. And of course, Zynga being a massive online, loot boxes and is
that what it is? I wasn't familiar with that.
Yeah, Zynga's all about microtransactions. They're about make the dumbest game possible as fast as possible that works just barely, and then make as much money from it as possible before anybody realizes how bad it is. That's their philosophy in business, basically. And, it worked big time on Farmville, because they produced Farmville and various other Facebook games back, 10, 12, 15 years ago, before they all died again. So, yeah, there seems to me that, Hasbro made a statement, their CEO made a statement about they were under-monetized. D&D as a franchise, was under-monetized. So now they're trying to, as far as I can see, they're trying to build a new virtual tabletop, build that into 6th edition, which we're not calling 6th edition, of course, because it's not blah, blah. And all I can really see is that everyone's going to find themselves in a virtual tabletop paying microtransactions to basically do anything.
Right.
Like, how you get the basic set right now? You can get the free stuff on the OGL. They'll give you like, here's 2 swords you can choose from. Here's, this is your basic costume. It looks shit and you look like a peasant. But if you just pay $4.50, you can have this shiny, fancy stuff that makes absolutely no difference to the game except you might like it. And I don't know. I worry because at some point, if they start letting that cross over into things like game mechanics,
Yeah.
When you get people who have money paying to win, or thinking that they can pay to win, assuming they can pay to win because they can do that in other games, why not D&D?
Yeah. No, you actually hit on a really good point, because I as a business, I understand the pay to play model, and that is in a sense good business for making money.
I'm a professional DM, right? I get it.
Yeah, but you're right. I think that's the thing, is as long as people understand that you can do all of this for free, you just don't have to have all the best, the new stuff, the best things. But yeah, if they create it in such a way that those who have more money can win. Yeah, I'm just reiterating what you're saying. Let's just stop selling the sell. But
yeah, but I mean, there's wide implications to that, aren't there? It's a pretty serious issue, and it turns it from a role playing game into, people won't even know that there were books. Eventually, people will forget that we had books and we played at a table. People will forget that we used to role play, and now it's kind of turning into a
video game,
a
co-op video game,
combat simulator kind of thing, where half the mechanics have been taken care of because they have to be, because they're so complicated to begin with. So it's I'm concerned. I have my concerns.
But yeah, so you're right. I mean, these are all things that we've heard about in the pipes that are going to be coming down, and they already did all these layoffs. We had the OGL scandal last year, all the other nonsense, and now right before Christmas, they just decide we're going to lay off a whole bunch of other people. And let me go back and clarify. I did look. It was not just Wizards of the Coast. It was Hasbro across the board.
Right, that would make sense.
So that makes more sense.
It'd be interesting to get the numbers for Wizards of the Coast, though, wouldn't it?
Right. Well, so here's the thing. I did a little bit of research. I will give credit. There's a couple websites where, I mean, they did a lot of the legwork for me with the financials. But so here's the thing. Wizards of the Coast was consistently profitable and had 40% growth last year in just like the last quarter of the year. Okay. And yet that's where Hasbro is saying, like, this is why we have to make cut. That's crazy to me that's it. Like, if you're looking at numbers alone, like, I don't understand where they're getting their logic. The
logic, in my opinion, is thus: they are a corporation. They have a legal obligation to make money and profit, continually grow their profit for their shareholders every year. And if they're not growing exponentially, then they believe they're failing, which is stupid in my opinion. But how much do you need?
Yeah. The way I'm reading this now, because I was looking at this, so sections of this, there was a memo that was sent out to everyone to announce this. And part of the memo read, while we see workforce reductions as a last resort, given the state of our business, it's a lever we must pull to keep Hasbro healthy. So Hasbro may not be doing as well as Wizards of the Coast. And so they're just basically taking from Wizards of the Coast and saying, help us get out of the red here.
It sounds to me like D&D is their cash cow.
Yeah.
And Hasbro is kind of starting to realize that D&D is a cash cow for them. I mean, they've got a number of franchises. They're still making Transformer movies and all the other shit. What else do they make? They don't do Barbie, do they? That's Mattel, isn't it?
Oh, that does sound right. You're right. Yeah, I think that's right.
But yeah, they certainly have a lot of franchises, so they really shouldn't be so desperate.
Right.
What the?
And then, as we love to bring up Dungeons and Discourse on this show, if you go watch her video, I have actually taken a break from watching a lot of her videos because we like to complain about how she's so negative all the time.
I watched 3 of them this morning.
Did you watch 3 of them this morning? There's some times where it's like, I just have to see this. What is she saying about this? And in case you don't know, Dungeons and Discourse is a YouTube show, also Nerd Newz, D&D news related. She just goes on like the other extreme of like, everything's falling, it's breaking, whatever. Anyway, but according to Dungeons and Discourse and whatever research she did, they did not lay off any leadership, and nor did any of the leadership take any pay cuts. So the last resort, I'm going back to the memo, the workforce reductions is a last resort. Not true. Don't say it's a last resort and then keep your bonus. So that just, it's so infuriating to me. So anyway, that's the big news with Wizards of the Coast and layoffs. My understanding is it's kind of a phased thing. So I don't know that everybody's been laid laid off yet. It was just announced.
So how do you think this will affect the industry as a whole? Because, this will have ramifications that will.
Yeah.
This is the real trickle down effect, actually.
This is the real trickle down effect. And here's the thing. Okay, boy, I'm going to really try not to get too deep in the weeds here. So I just went on a work trip. And so for anybody who doesn't know, my day job is I work for a company that goes into corporations, and we basically show them how to work better as a team, organizational health, because that in effect helps them to lead the company better, right? And so one of the things that we talk about is smart versus healthy. So if you run a company the smart way, that's all like the tangible stuff. That's like your profit margin, your technology, how you market everything. It's all tangible stuff, and you can do that well, and you can be a good company.
Left brain, or right brain.
Right. So a healthy company, all that stuff is stuff that's like not tangible. That's like your emotional IQ, and you care about how your people feel about working in the workplace, right? It sounds touchy-feely, but the thing is that when there's anything wrong with a company, the leadership always goes to the smart stuff, because that's easier. It's quantifiable. You know that you're doing well if your profit margin goes up, right?
I was going to mention the quantitative and qualitative aspects of, and that's obviously you've got that figured out. So
right. So the thing with companies, though, is that you can run a company smart, and you can continue to do that, but by doing that, you will never also get healthy. Whereas if you run a company the healthy way, you may not be smart in the beginning, but if you continually run your company the healthy way, it will also be smart eventually. Right. So that's how you get both, is you have to care about the things that are intangible for a company. And there's way more to it than this. It's a whole 2-day spiel that we give these clients.
Well, but I can only imagine that. I've worked for many companies, and the for me it's a difficult thing working for a corporation, because you're being asked to do things for them for money, for the sort of transactional kind of thing, and you're doing things you generally don't want to do.
Right.
And so there's always kind of this sense of discontent about that to begin with, outright.
Right.
At least for me. I mean, there's lots of people who go to their jobs and do it every day, and they're like, yes, I've got a job. Yay. And that's probably how I should be. But I don't know. I'm too privileged and self-righteous for that nonsense.
So when you ask me, like, how is this going to affect things? Right. I honestly feel so right now they are running everything the smart way. They do not care about their people. They do not care about the intangible things. All they care about is their profit margin, their numbers, and how everything looks.
And they haven't realized that the mental health of the family of the company is being destroyed.
Right.
While they're doing that.
So the result, and what we're seeing already, is horrible mistakes, right? Like people are getting pulled in that they don't have a passion for what they do. They're doing it for the money, because everyone, that's the culture they're basically teaching the people who come into this company, is that it's all about the money. So guess what? We see them using AI art and then getting caught for it. And no one likes that. I included this in the Nerd News, but I saw something recently where for Magic the Gathering, which is also Wizards of the Coast product, they paid an artist to do art for these cards, and there was basically this blowback that came because the shot that was selected for this card is like an upskirt shot of a lion, like this lion folk, and then there's it. I'm not sure why they call it an upskirt shot, because it looked like a male lion, who has like a long
wrapping
or something, and you kind of get
loincloth,
like the loincloth, and you get an upskirt shot, right? And so there was all this blowback on the artist, and the artist was like, hey, I gave them 3 options to choose from. That's what Wizards of the Coast pick. And so I thought that was really interesting, because again, and whether or not you think it's an upskirt shot, it just kind of goes to the fact that they're not really like taking a moment to look or think or consider what their community thinks about these things. They just care about the money.
Are they trying to create controversy so that they continually get talked about?
I mean, that is a tactic, but I don't think it's a smart tactic for sure.
I agree. I mean, it's terrible, but maybe that's all they've got left or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
And what are they doing? There's sort of, you've got a bunch of people, as you say, passionless people sitting around trying to create a game for a bunch of passionate individuals. And the thing is, this is a losing battle for them because we don't need them. They don't. Do they get that? They actually have to serve us. They have to provide something to society in order for us to want to pay them, and for us to really actually pay them. I think they should be providing an actual service. And at the moment, I don't feel that they are. They're just pumping out regurgitated nonsense. There's no creativity or anything really innovative coming out that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, opinion. So that's where I think this is headed. If we're gonna talk about predictions, not this year, it will be. This is a big ship, so it's slow to turn, right? But I think next year, or even possibly the year after, D&D is going to be so far and away from what we associate it as now.
Yeah.
That
as kids.
No, it is going to be a co-op video game. It is going to, that's just where it's headed. And the people that love that will just be like, D&D's great. D&D's great. And the majority of us will be like, that's not D&D. And I'm pretty sure that's where it's headed until, or if someone, they start treating it as a healthy company and caring about the things that we care about.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And the thing is that, as soon as people realize that if they're trying to play D&D like it's a video game and they're trying to get something out of it that way, at some point you've got to realize that actually, I should be playing World of Warcraft because it actually does what I want it to do.
Right.
And it doesn't have all this unnecessary shit in it. I don't have to pretend to role play.
Yeah.
I can just fuck around and troll people and do whatever I want whilst playing a video game. I don't have to play a character. I can just kill shit and ramp up my stats and min-max to the, cows come home. And that's what those people probably should do because D&D is not really for them, in my opinion. You're not getting the most out of the medium. It's like, I don't know, going to a movie and then putting on sunglasses. Or blindfold or something. It's like you're missing half the experience here because you're not really paying attention to it. And that's partly because WoTC is pushing for this whole move to this style of game. And what is funny to me is there was a lot of criticism of 4th edition because 4th edition came out after we'd had things like World of Warcraft and the big MMOs. And so 4th edition D&D, in my opinion, had this sort of slide towards this idea of really powerful characters that had really powerful stuff like a video game character. Some of the rules were kind of modified to make it work a little bit more that way, where you had daily powers and so on. And people rebelled against that because it was too much like a video game.
Yeah, exactly. It was before its time, it seems.
Right. Funnily enough, I thought 4th edition, I only played it twice, but I thought it was all right. I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I was happy that they were still making editions of it at that point, and then 5th that came out. And
what's funny is I see on a lot of online forums right now, especially with Baldur's Gate 3 that had come out, and people have now finished that. They're ready to move on to something else. I'm seeing a lot of people start asking about what are some older RPG video games I can play that was like that. Now, Baldur's Gate 3, I think was very that was a really, I haven't even played it, so I can't speak from experience, but my understanding is that encompassed everything that I think a lot of us RPG video gamers have been wanting for a very long time.
Right.
So there are other older video games that we can play, but not to that extent, not Baldur's Gate 3 level,
right. No, you're gonna have to wait for that shit,
Right. So what my hope is once we get through the years of VTT and everybody playing D&D as a video game, and those of them that love it will continue to do that, but there will be, like you said, a swath of people who didn't know that you could play D&D a different way. And if they manage to get introduced to it, they're going to go, whoa, what is this? And so I'm predicting 5 to 10 years out, we're going to see another resurgence of D&D the way we know it.
Right. I've met people and introduced them. I've met people that have played role-playing games before, and they come into it they've played D&D or something, and they come into a game and you start role-playing with them, and then they're like, holy shit, I can stay in character.
Yeah.
I don't have to break out of character at all. I can stay in character. I can get deep into character, and the players that I'm playing with are facilitating that. If you're playing with a group of people who don't want to role-play, really role-play, getting emotional role-playing is what I'm talking about. Just, I'm a big scary barbarian. like fucking crying and shit.
Yeah.
If you're in a group where people are prepared to do that, it's much easier for you to do it, and if you've never played in a group where people are prepared to do that, you don't even know you can do it.
Right.
And I've seen people minds blown realizing, oh my God, this is what I wanted from my role playing and I was never able to get it.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of having permission,
and exposure. I feel like it's exposure because you don't know it exists, and then once you know it exists, it's like, oh, I can do this. Yes, you can.
Yeah, and other people will do it with you. They're not going to think you're weird or a freak or stupid or whatever.
Yeah,
there are people who will play proper role playing with you. You don't need it to make it a video game.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm going to keep going with predictions here, but now the more we talk it out, I'm willing to bet we're going to have the VTT. We're going to have at least a couple of years of everybody going, this is great. And then there will be the minority of us that are like, but we want our old D&D, and what's going to happen is Wizards of the Coast is going to split D&D. Like right now we have the digital and the hardcover bundles, right? But I think at some point they will split it in such a way that the D&D video experience is way different than what you play at table.
Well, I think that's very true, especially with the rise of AI. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of video games are starting to incorporate AI NPCs that have, I can only imagine from talking to ChatGPT, they may or may not be that amazing, but they're definitely better than the pre-programmed bullshit barks that we get from video games at the moment. Greetings, adventurer. Every time you walk up to the same NPC, they say the same shit, What if you gave that NPC a 2-page PDF that outlined their personality and what's going on in their life and what they want from life and all of that sort of shit? And then they can there'll be some shit will happen. It will feel like So that's cool. But I think on top of what you've just said, I think another thing that will happen is that WoTC is too greedy. They're going to continue fucking up. They're going to make microtransactions a part of this. And they're going to try and milk it to death, and they will probably kill it. If not kill it, they will bring it all the way back down to where it was at the end of 1988 or whatever it was, when they were in their lowest point. Well, to be fair, that wasn't WoTC. That was TSR.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm envisioning it going, is that it will get burnt to the ground and people will go back to what we did, what we used to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, I'm leaning on the fence of, you're right. Okay. I'm not going to belittle or keep going on that.
So the further ramifications of this, when we talk about like, how does this affect the industry? So we're talking about not just WoTC now, because this comes back to the whole OGL bullshit. So now we've got all of these third-party content creators, people like us, Dungeon Studios, and so on, making content for games like D&D. And if D&D proves to be less and less cooperative with us in all these ways, well, why? Daggerheart is a thing. There's Daggerheart, there's Pathfinder, there's 10 million other role-playing games.
Yeah.
And WoTC, they're in trouble, mate, because as soon as people realize that D&D is just the most nicely packaged role-playing game in the world, that's really all it is. And when people realize that, they're fucked.
Yeah.
They're so fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, we realized this in the 80s. When other role-playing games started coming out, we saw other games that were better than D&D. They were actually better. And back then, TSR didn't have the money to say, oh, well, fuck it, we'll make a movie then.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to start streaming with some voice actors. That'll help. They couldn't do that back in those days. So we literally just went, nah, these other games are better. And we didn't have D&D Beyond holding us back, because with 5th edition D&D, I'm really reticent to change role-playing games because of D&D Beyond. The money that I've sunk into it and the usefulness of it. The tool itself is fantastic.
It's a trap.
For D&D. It is a trap.
Yeah.
But if you could build another VTT type system that could run other games with a little tweaking, it would make sense to me that Kickstarters from now on, if they're clever, will release documents that can be added to AI, that can be give the knowledge base to an AI and include that with the books that you're selling, so that they can be pre-prep all that tech stuff and ship it with the product, so that it doesn't immediately go outdated.
Yeah. That's a good point. We might be headed towards like a dark ages of tabletop, right? Because D&D is going to blow everything up and everybody's going to go, what do we do? What do we play? I don't know how to play this. Oh boy, we're going to have to try to figure it out.
And it's interesting because, like, for example, we've got this whole thing with AI going on at the moment. Have you heard of Sora, the new Sora tool that's just coming out from
I have not.
OpenAI? Okay, so Sora, they haven't released it yet, but I've seen the videos that basically it's text prompting video clips, and they are amazing. It's like Mid-Journey for video.
Interesting.
You can make big clips from it. They're amazing clips. They're not always going to be right, but if you fuck around with them long enough, you could make a feature film.
Yeah.
You could make a movie, a whole movie, if you really want to. You could do that. It's not released yet, but it will be. And that's going to affect the film industry big time. We've already got people going, oh, we don't like AI art. We don't like AI this, that, and the other thing. Now, I find that interesting because, firstly, D&D as a role-playing game, and role-playing games generally, are an oral storytelling tradition at their core, right?
Right.
You don't need technology for that bullshit. Now, once people get to the point where they're saturated with highly polished, incredible imagery and amazing graphics and all that shit, and that becomes so passe, there's going to be a point where we go, hey, who wants to go to the theater?
Yeah.
Who wants to go and see a play? Let's go and see a play. That's way cooler than going to see the next Marvel movie because we know that they just spat it out of an AI.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas we could go and see a play, we can see real people acting and feeling.
Authenticity. Yeah.
Authenticity, human experience. Right? So my prediction is that theater is going to have a comeback. And this is a good excuse and a great way to market that comeback. And in the same way as that's going to happen, role-playing will have a comeback too. It might be a much smaller niche comeback.
Right.
But it's that authentic role-playing human experience that people ultimately are looking for. I will challenge any AI to role play against me, motherfucker. Bring it.
God, I can't wait until Skynet joins us on our show.
Come on,
Skynet. Let's do an interview with Skynet. That would be great.
If you got no feelings, how can you role play?
Oh, that's amazing.
You can use language, but can you really convey authentic stuff? Especially the thing that I think people find most authentic about other humans is when they bring out experiential moments or experiences that they've had personally. Whereas anything coming out of ChatGPT is basically you're talking to the zeitgeist. You're talking to the whole community all at once, and you're only talking in really wide general terms. It's really hard for the AI to be specific about having any kind of personal experience. So you can't expect the AI to give you a personal anecdote that's going to make you feel better.
Right.
It can tell you, it'll give you all this general wisdom, which is great, but it's not going to make you feel better by saying, I personally know how you feel.
Right.
And that's the difference.
I think it'll take folks a while, I think, to get to the point where they realize there's a difference, though. Right. That's the thing. Yeah. Right now, it's just cool and fandangled and new.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw there was a video. I didn't watch it, but there was a video on YouTube. I noticed that was like an hour and a half of this guy talking about, can you run an entire D&D game with the AI DMing? Mm-hmm. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I'm going to guess no. I think at this point, the answer is no. I think that we are a couple of years away from general artificial intelligence, and that might be able to do it.
Yeah.
But probably still not that great, to be honest, because for that reason, it doesn't have that personal set of experiences. It doesn't understand how meaningful they are. It's all the same to it. It has weights of information, but it's not the same as knowing intuitively what a human feels and thinks and being able to respond to that.
Yeah.
And chemistry as well. So I think we've got a couple of years left before we lose our DMing jobs, but I hope so. And if we don't, you know what? I'm going to be a player. I'm going to go on the dole, and I'm just going to be a player. Forget DMing.
I was going to say, what you need to do is get into the theater, because that's going to have a resurgence, and then you will be the next big actor.
Right. There you go. Back to the theater for me.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a couple other predictions. One is that the new release for D&D, which I think they said was going to come in May, D&D 1 or D&D 6th edition, whatever you want to call it. I honestly believe that will end up getting pushed to like October. It's not going to happen on time. I know that they put a date on it, but if I remember correctly, when that news story came out, that was even a mistake. They weren't even supposed to say May. It was a mistake that someone said, and they were like, oops, shouldn't have said it. So that's why I think it's not going to happen. It's going to happen happen like later this year in October. That's my first prediction, which will be soon quickly proven or not.
That's true. That's true. Every day that passes from May, it's going to be, you're going to be right, basically. Yeah. That'll be provable.
And then my next one, which this is going to really shock folks, I think, but Critical Role. Are you up to date on Critical Role at all?
The only thing I know about Critical Role right now is a little bit of research that I did today. Matt Mercer and the Critical Role team are quite busy with several exciting projects. The Mighty Nine Origins comic series is set to conclude in 2024, exploring the backstories of characters Beauregard and Caduceus. These stories delve into their lives before the events of the Mighty Nine campaign, offering fans deeper insights into their favorite characters. Additionally, Matthew Mercer is expanding his role in the World of Actual Play series by serving as the Dungeon Master for an upcoming season of Dimension 20, another popular tabletop role-playing game series. This marks the first time Mercer will take the DM role in Dimension 20, bringing his renowned storytelling and world-building skills to a new audience. Probably not that new an audience, to be fair. I think probably Dimension 20 has the same audience.
Yeah.
I think if anyone is watching Dimension 20, they're doing that because they've already watched Critical Role this week.
Yeah. I feel like there are some in the community I've heard where they no longer watch Critical Role because this particular campaign this season is like a little bit slower or not what they got used to with campaign 2 or campaign 1. And Dimension 20 is different because they kind of do like mini campaigns and they're all different flavors. And so I think that's drawing more of that audience now. They get a little bit of everything.
Sick of the same
character, the same story. Yeah. I was just curious if you were up to date. I am up to date on their current season, their season 3, and there have been a few little things that have happened maybe not this year, might have been last year, where people are starting to wonder, are they pulling away from D&D, right? They put out Candela Obscura. I think we've talked about that. They have Midst, which is an audio drama that they're basically they bought and is now part of the Crit Role family.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so
Shadow Dark.
I'm actually wondering if this campaign, this season, I'm pretty sure it will finish by the end of this year, I think, if not, early next year. But my prediction is that once they are done with this long form campaign, they will no longer do any more long form campaigns. I think they are winding down, and I don't want to say winding down, like they're not going to close shop. They're still going to be Critical Role, but I think they're probably going to start moving to the same model that Dimension 20 does, because Matt is burnt out. Matt just recently put out a video where his mental state is like in the tank, and he was sharing it with the public. He suffers from depression a lot, and I think that that's part of it, is he's just like burning the wick at both ends, doing all this stuff. And I think they're going to go to the Dimension 20 model where now he can do a mini campaign, take a break, focus on other project, do another mini campaign, take a break, focus on other project. And so I think this is the last we're going to see of this long form campaign style they have. And that's my prediction.
Maybe they might take a break. They might come back to it. You never know. But
I don't know.
You don't think so? You don't think?
I don't know. So here's the thing.
You think they'll miss it?
With campaign 1. So when they first started, they had already been playing that campaign for a year, and there was like a ridiculous amount of episodes. I want to say it was like, I don't know, somewhere in like 250, 300 something episodes, 400.
I watched the first campaign.
Yeah.
Whole first campaign.
Like ridiculous number of episodes for the first campaign. The second campaign was shorter than that. And I have a feeling where they're at in the third campaign, we're already heading towards the end. And I don't even think they're like at 100 episodes. Wow. So I think they're just trying to get this down to something a little bit more manageable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as who was it that said to me the other? No, it was Matthew Colville said D&D is like half an hour of intense action packed into 4 hours.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think
as an outsider, that's how it feels.
That is my main prediction for Critical Role. I feel fairly certain that's going to happen. I can't wait to see if I'm right on that one.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, I mean, what Matt Mercer does in Critical Role is going to certainly affect everybody else. I mean, along with they're doing so much stuff. Besides their campaigns, there's all the cartoons and all that stuff. Role playing games. Well, they got 2 role playing games now, or is it just one with tweaked rules?
Ooh, I think 2.
Because
I don't.
Something Candelabra or something.
Out? Yeah, Candela Obscura is out. Right. Isn't Daggerheart theirs? And there's they have another one, I think. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's 3.
Dark before. Sorry. Yeah, Daggerheart's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I mean, in lesser news, I've got a list of very bottom dwelling news You guys, if you're the
Let's
least bit
hear it.
interested in who's releasing what, okay, so let's go. Here's a roundup of some of the latest news and tabletop role-playing games from the independent sector. So, Free League Publishing announced its 2024 game portfolio, including titles like Mutant Year Zero Zone Wars, the Electric State role-playing game, an expansion for the Alien RPG, and the One Ring RPG. Now, it doesn't actually tell me if that's a tabletop game, but in my research, I was searching for tabletop news, so
Yeah.
I assume that is. Diablo, the role-playing game, is set to bring the iconic video game universe to tabletops. How about that? Promising a dark fantasy experience with action combat, and narrative depth. That could be fun.
Yeah.
The Shin Megami Tensei tabletop RPG is finally getting an English release, allowing fans to create their own demon-infested adventures. Woot! Avatar Legends, the role-playing game, offers a narrative-driven experience set in the beloved Avatar universe using a modified version of the Powered by the Apocalypse system. Cowboy Bebop role-playing game invites players to dive into the year 2071 as space bounty hunters, featuring an original dice-based system and the ability to interact with iconic series characters.
All right. I like that. That's kind of a different, way to get into a space jammer kind of a feel. Yeah.
The Marvel Multiverse role-playing game X-Men expansion is on the horizon, built on the S616 system. Never heard of it. Allowing players to use their favorite X-Men characters and abilities in tabletop adventures. And finally, Tabletop Gaming News also highlighted other notable releases and updates, including new expansions and Kickstarter campaigns for various other games. That's not really news at all. Yeah, so there you go. That's briefly what I was able to find out. I'm sure there's a plethora of other amazing Kickstarters, and we haven't even covered things like, all the coolest miniatures coming out right now and who's doing, you've talked to, Avery. He's actually in the States right now. He just flew over 2 days ago, and I think he's going to New Orleans, but he's got a 3D printer, and he's been printing me minis on his 3D printer, which is quite fun. So, in other news, I got some minis. That's tabletop news, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's our news.
It's our news. Right.
Yeah.
But the rise of 3D printers too is another thing here that is going to affect things as we go.
Yeah. Honestly, here, okay, I was ready to end the show, but you brought up 3D printers, so I'm going to come around here real quick. 3D printing. Have you actually ever tried to 3D print something?
No, I've not. I've watched videos about it. I've seen it, on screen, but I've never done it.
It is a bear of a task. I mean, I would not, with all the YouTube videos, I would not have figured out how to use my own dang 3D printer if it weren't for my DM who knew how to use a 3D printer and came over and showed me in person.
Right.
YouTube videos, it was like, what? I don't know what I'm talking about or what they're talking about. And then once you understand how to use your printer, there's all kinds of stuff you need to understand about the different printing methods and the different apps that you can use to print and where you get your STL files. And it is a bear. And so that's another reason why I think going to VTT, people for some reason can understand that better than trying to 3D print something. I am fairly certain it is much easier to use a VTT.
I was about to say that this is interesting because we've got the people at the moment who are doing all the 3D printing and building the fantastic tabletop sets and shit.
Yeah.
And there's never been so much scope for an incredible tabletop setup, with you can go augmented too, because you can have a big screen on your tabletop as well as your miniatures, as well as your smoke machine and lights and whatever the hell else you want to put on there. Extra terrain. You can add all that together and have something truly very dramatic. There's a huge amount of work, I suspect, but there are people who love that shit, and I suspect you're one of them. Because I know you love making stuff and dealing with physical stuff. I mean, you would think that would be more grounding and easier, and you would think that 3D printing would feed into that. But from what you're saying, it sounds like 3D printing is harder than figuring out Roll20.
It really is. And here's the other aspect to it, which again, I think is going to feed into people veering towards VTT and away from physical, is because 3D printers, I mean, they're cheaper now than when they were, let's say, 5 years ago, but you're still paying a lot of money up front for the printer for the PLA or the whatever material you need to print with, and then the experience. So you're losing material as you're learning how to print on your 3D printer. There's just a lot of upfront investment in time and money. Whereas with VTT, you're going to do pay to play. So you're going to maybe, pay $60 for this app and then watch a couple YouTube videos and spend 5, 10, $20 here and there. Over time, you'll spend as much money,
and
but
if you've got
it
the
doesn't
right
feel.
DM, they'll just talk you through it anyway. You don't even have to watch the thing. No, that's true. It's the digitized sort of system. So I see this as sort of inherent problem, because on the one hand, we're trapped by the digital system, the D&D Beyonds and the VTTs. They're holding us hostage because they're so easy to use to make the game work. The real problem is not the VTTs. The real problem is the games are too complicated. D&D is way more complicated than it needs to be. That's the simple truth. If you could play as quickly using dice and being, playing directly with your other players at a table as you can with a VTT, why would you use a VTT?
Yeah.
Wouldn't need to.
Well, I was going to say, for people who like eye candy, like as much as I love making stuff, I would not say no to playing on a VTT with all the cool fandangled shit. Like, hell yeah, I would totally do it. But I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I run most of my games on Roll20 these days. I never used to. I used to play Theater of the Mind pretty much 100%, but I don't know. I've gotten into map making, and now that I'm making maps a lot, I like using them, and so the VTT makes sense.
Yeah.
You can combine. There's a fine line in that stuff,
Yeah.
You can use the map, and you get better at it.
Yeah. So, folks, I guess as we're gonna wrap up this show, I want to make it clear we are not like knocking on people who prefer to use VTT and all that. What I think our main concern is that we just have a love and passion for the way that we played D&D before all the technology, and we're gonna be our old grandpa selves and say, I used to walk 5 miles in the snow to play D&D.
I'm actually saying that it's better than I'm no.
Okay, well, I'm not. I don't want people to feel like we're telling them you guys are shit. That's not what we're saying. So
what I do have a prediction though.
Oh, you do? Okay.
One last
prediction.
One last prediction. I think that one of the things that might happen this year, or certainly in the next short-term year or two or so on, I think that the opportunity for growing recognition among educators for role-playing games is a thing that seems to be happening at the moment, along with diversity, actually. We're seeing that in pop culture. But I think that teachers and schools are beginning to go, oh, all that satanic panic shit was all nonsense.
Yeah.
And this stuff's actually quite good. And it really helps certain kids. Maybe not every kid, but a lot of kids. And especially some of the more interesting kids,
Yeah.
Ones that are going to turn out to be interesting, at least.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I've been seeing that already. I mean, in our own community, there's people posting like, I want to start a D&D club at my son's school. How do I go about doing that? I see those posts a lot.
It's becoming an accepted thing, and it's really quite amazing, considering where it was 20 years ago.
This is true. This is true.
So that's my prediction. I think we'll see some more acceptance of such things amongst educators.
Yes. And on that note, we're going to end this shortly and quickly and say it's good night from me and it's good night from him.
Yep. That's good night from her, me, and from,
Yep. Good night from us. And we will see you guys next time.